Hey everybody, Mr. Judson here. So yesterday we did sine and cosine, and I think some of the questions they asked you to figure out the tangent as well. So I was just expecting that you guys would skip that for the assignment. But we do want to take a look at it for today. So here's our sum and difference rule for the tangent, which is a little more complicated than the sine or cosine. So our rule here says if you're going to take the tangent of one angle plus or minus another, we'll just call them u and v, then what I need to do is I need to take the tangent of the first angle plus or minus. So because this has the same orientation as this, that means whatever this sine is, this has to match, okay? And then tangent of v over 1 minus or plus. So the sign here is going to be the opposite of what we see here. See, when the top one's positive, here the top one's negative. When the bottom one's negative, then the bottom one here is positive. So we just want the opposite. And then tangent u times tangent v. So let's go ahead and try one of these. And we'll just do this together as a group. So if I had the tangent of 105 degrees, I'd want to look at that and say, okay, that's going to be the tangent of, and I have to think of two angles that I would add or subtract to get 105, where, same thing as before, one of them is 45 degrees. So I usually just put 45 in there and think 45 plus what? You know, the only time I don't do this is if that angle is less than 45, and then I know I have to subtract. So 45 plus 60 degrees. And so now what we're saying is that's going to be tangent of the first angle. Remember, we don't just distribute this and take the tangent of each. It doesn't work that way. You can try it. You know, do tangent 45 plus tangent 60 with the calculator, see what you get, and then go back and do tangent of 105 and see what you get. You won't get the same answer. It doesn't work. Alright, so plus tangent 60 degrees divided by 1, I want the opposite of this, so minus tangent 45 times tangent 60. And so now what I need to do is I need to go to the unit circle and see what each of these are going to be equal to. So let's see, both these angles are in the first quadrant, so I'm just going to draw that part of the unit circle. I've got this angle right here, which is root 2 over 2 comma root 2 over 2. And 60 degrees, that's this angle. That's going to be 1/2 comma root 3 over 2. Alright, so tangent of 45. Remember, tangent is sine over cosine. And when we look at the unit circle, we do the sine numerator divided by the cosine numerator. So this is root 2 over root 2, which is 1, plus tangent 60. That's root 3 over 1, which is just root 3, over 1 minus tangent of 45, root 2 over root 2 is 1, times tangent 60, that's square root of 3. And so what I got here is 1 plus the square root of 3 over 1 minus the square root of 3. Now, problem with the tangent function is usually once we're done, we're not really done. Because remember, we can't have square roots in the denominator. And so the question now is, how do I get rid of that? And when you have two terms here that are being subtracted, the only way to get rid of it is to multiply by its conjugate. So 1 plus root 3, and what you do to the bottom, you got to do the same thing to the top. Alright, so if I multiply that, I now get, I'll FOIL the top, so I get 1 plus the square root of 3 plus another square root of 3, so plus 2 root 3. And then root 3 times root 3 is 3. In the denominator I get 1 plus root 3 minus root 3, those add up to 0, and then minus 3. So that equals 4 plus 2 root 3 over a negative 2. And then what I need to do is divide that up into two separate fractions. So 4 over negative 2, that would be a negative 2. 2 root 3 over negative 2, those 2's would cancel, and I'd get minus root 3. There's our final answer. So just like yesterday, I want to punch this in the calculator and punch that in the calculator and make sure that I get the same answer for both of those. So double check, make sure I'm still in degree mode, which I am. And so I'm going to do tangent 105, hit enter. So I got a negative 3.732. And so now I'm going to punch this in the calculator. So I've got negative 2 minus the square root of 3. And I got that same decimal number, negative 3.732. So it checks out. So one question that we probably should answer, I told you guys we don't have formulas for a cotangent, but what if they asked us to find the cotangent of this? Well, we know they're reciprocals, right? So I would have done exactly the same thing, and now I'm just going to do 1 over this, or I would have gone back to this point right here and I would have flipped this over. That would be the cotangent. And if I flip this over, that means this is now in the denominator, so my conjugate would be 1 minus the square root of 3. Okay? Alright, so here's another one. Some of the questions today they're going to ask a little different. They want us to write with one trig function. In other words, condense this whole thing down to just a tangent of one angle. So really we're going from this back to here. So that means I would have, let's see, whatever this sine here is, this should be the same. This angle goes there, and then angle V goes here. So this should really just be tangent of 140 minus 80 degrees, which would be tangent of 60 degrees. They're not asking us to find the answer, they're just saying to write this using one trig function only. So there it is. Instead of having several tangents, I now have just one tangent. Here's another one similar to that. Let's try this one. This time I've got sine of 140 degrees, cosine of 50 degrees, minus cosine of 140, sine of 50. We want to write this using just one trig function. So really what you want to do is you want to look at this and think to yourself, is this the sum and difference formula for sines or sum and difference formula for cosines? And I know the cosine, it's cosine, cosine, sine, sine, so this must belong to the sine function. So what I would have is the sine of this angle, and we should be subtracting. So 140 minus 50. This part looks like it's kind of backwards. I mean, from what we did yesterday, I would have had those two things flipped around. But because we're multiplying, that's okay. You can write it this way. If you want to rewrite it and put the sine of 50 first, that's okay. And so now this is just going to be the sine of 90 degrees. I don't have to figure out what it's equal to. Just write it as one trig function. All right, so we'll see a few problems like that. All right, so here's another type of question they'll ask us using the sum and difference formula. They want us to find the sine of u plus v if we know this information. And they want an exact answer. So the sine of u is equal to negative 7/25, and we're in quadrant 4 for this. The cosine of v equals a negative 4/5. Sorry, the ink's bleeding together. And this is in quadrant 2. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to draw a picture for each of these angles and then use that picture as a way to plug in for the sum and difference formula. So here's angle U is in the 4th quadrant. Okay, don't forget our reference angle always has to touch the x-axis. And so we know sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So this would be negative 7. This would be 25. And so I have to do Pythagorean theorem to figure out what this right here is. And I got 24. Okay? And then now for the angle V, that's in the 2nd quadrant. There's V. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And this should be a 3, 4, 5 triangle. Alright, so now I can come back over here and say that this is equal to the sine of angle U, cosine of V. Should use the same sign as that, so plus, and then swap the angles. Sine of V, cosine of U. So what's the sine of angle U? Well, we knew that. They told us right here. Negative 7/25. Cosine of V, they told us that right here. That's a negative 4/5. And then plus sine of angle V, here's V. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so 3/5 times cosine of U. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And so here I've got a negative times a negative. That would be a positive 28 over 125 plus 3 times 24. That's going to be 72 over 125. Nice thing about problems like this is we almost always end up with a common denominator. We don't have to find that. We just got to add those two together. So this would be 100. 125ths. If I divide top and bottom by 25, I would get 4/5. There's my exact answer. Can't really check this on the calculator because we don't know what angle U and angle V are. So we just, we kind of just need to draw the pictures and plug the numbers in and see what we get. So let's try another one using that same information, okay? So this time I want you guys to find the cotangent of U plus V. So remember, there is no formula for a cotangent, so what we're going to do is we're going to find the tangent of U plus V, and when we get down to the end, we'll just flip our answer over. Okay, you guys go ahead and try it. Alright, so I'm going to say that the tangent of U plus V is equal to tangent U plus the tangent of V over 1 minus, these will always be opposites, and then tangent U times tangent V. Alright, so tangent of U, that is opposite over adjacent, so that'll be a negative 7/24 plus. Here if I do opposite over adjacent, I get a negative 3/4 over 1 minus tangent u was a negative 7/24. Tangent v was a negative 3/4. And so now we just need to simplify that fraction. So I think what I would do here, we're kind of going back and revisiting a common idea that we've seen this year. This is a complex fraction, right? I've got a fraction within the fraction. And so the way you get rid of that is you multiply every term. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. This is just one term right here. It's not separated by a plus or minus sign. We're multiplying these, so it's just one term in the end. And what I want to do is I want to multiply all of them by the least common denominator, which looks like it's going to be 24 times 4. So if I do that, let's see, 24 times 4, that's 96. So I want to multiply this by 96, this by 96, this by 96, and this whole thing here by 96. Now, since I know 24 times 4 equals 96, I can just cancel both of those, because they're in the denominator, with this in the numerator. So here's what I have so far. I've got 96. I've got a negative times a negative times a negative. That's 3 negatives, so that would be minus 21. In the numerator, I know I did 24 times 4 to get 96, so 96 divided by 24 is 4. And over here, 96 divided by 4 is 24. So a negative 7 times 4, that's going to be a negative 28. 3 times 24, that would be 72, and we're subtracting. And so now my final answer here, I've got a negative 100. 96 minus 21, that's going to be 75. And that'll reduce down to a negative 4/3. Now remember, that's not our final answer, because this is what the tangent is equal to. We want to try and find the cotangent. And so I'm kind of running out of room here, but I'm going to say that the cotangent of u plus v is equal to the reciprocal of this, a negative 3/4. Alright, so we're pushing this idea a little bit farther. Work's getting a little more complicated, but nothing real bad. And we can do cotangents and secants and cosecants. We just don't have a sum and difference formula for those. We got to do the ones we know first and flip it over at the end. Okay? Alright, let's try one more. Alright, so you guys go ahead and try this one. Both angles are in the third quadrant. Here's our information that we know. And we're trying to find the cosecant of u minus v. Alright, so here's my two triangles. Based on this information, I have to do the Pythagorean theorem to find the missing side here. And that's a triple that I recognize. That's going to be 12. It needs to be negative because we're going in the negative x direction. And here this is a 3, 4, 5. And that 4 needs to be negative. Okay, so we're trying to find the cosecant, which we don't have a formula for. But we know the cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine. So I'm going to use my sum and difference formula for the sine. So sine of u minus v, and then whatever we do, when we get to the end, we'll just flip that answer over. That equals sine of u cosine of v minus sine of v cosine of u. Alright, so the sine of u is going to be It's right here, negative 5/13. Cosine of v, it's that one, a negative 3/5, minus sine of v would be opposite over hypotenuse, so that'd be a negative 4/5, times the cosine of u, which would be adjacent over hypotenuse, so that'd be a negative 12/13. So if I multiply here, I get 15 over 65. Negative times a negative times a negative, that's 3 negative signs. And 4 times 12, that's going to be 48 over 65. And so 15 minus 48, that's going to be a negative 33 over 65. And remember, that's the sine. We want the cosecant, so I got to flip that over. So the cosecant of u minus v is going to equal a negative 65 over 33. All right, that's it. That's what we have for today. All right, so here's our assignment. We're now on number 14. Still on page 404. I know we did 21 yesterday. This time I want you to just do the tangent for this one, okay? And then for everything beyond that we haven't done. So 21, don't do all three of the trig functions, just do the tangent. Everything else will do what the question asks for. All right, that's it, you guys. It's been 3 straight days. Have a good weekend. Stay safe.